Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Jacob Ponce. I am the founder of AmpShare. I appreciate your time and attention. I know it's extremely valuable, so let's go ahead and get started. AmpShare exists to re-envision and reinvigorate the ride-sharing industry by providing energy-efficient, emissions-free, responsible transportation for the modern metropolitan infrastructure. AmpShare will intentionally target large cities, and our goal is to have the most simplistic, user-friendly business model in an industry that focuses generally on having the largest volume of services rendered in the largest area of service, and that usually comes at the expense of profitability and brand loyalty. Now, the ride-sharing market was valued domestically at $73.7 billion in 2020, and it's expected to reach $209.6 billion by 2026. That's according to Mordor Intelligence. And it would be growing at a compound annual growth rate of 19.2% over that forecast period of 5 years. Now, the increase in demand for cost-saving and time-saving transportation, the increasing costs of vehicle ownership, the need for reducing traffic congestion, environmental concerns, governmental regulation, etc., will continue to drive demand for ride sharing, not only domestically, but worldwide. Now, as you can see, 5 cities are making up 22% of an international multi-billion-dollar company's revenue in rideshare. This is extremely impressive. And in fact, this market research here is what led me to believe that a ride-sharing company that operates exclusively in major cities would be a viable and profitable option. Now, targeting city-dwelling commuters who tend to have consistent, predictable routines gives AmpShare 3 main advantages over its competitors. First, it allows AmpShare to have the highest potential of profitability with the lowest upfront costs when going to market. This part's pretty simple. If you're providing rides to people, you want to have as many ride requests as possible within about 5 minutes of your driver's location at any given time. Second, it provides the most leverage for one of AmpShare's most important competitive advantages, and that is the exclusive use of electric vehicles, or EVs. All factors being equal, internal combustion vehicles, or gasoline-powered vehicles, lose between 64 and 70% of their fuel source's energy, while EVs lose between 15 and 20%. And this is according to the United States Department of Energy via fueleconomy.gov. And this enormous difference in efficiency stems from a fundamentally different way of creating torque to drive the wheels. That's not something I have time to get into today, but it is extremely interesting, and it's fascinating to myself. Now, here on the left-hand side, we have the 2021 Nissan Versa, and on the right-hand side, we have the 2021 Nissan Leaf. And the distinction between these two vehicles draws a parallel that's quite similar to the distinction between AmpShare from an Uber or a Lyft. On the surface, they look nearly identical. They can perform the same tasks. They carry the same amount of people. They're roughly the same size. They're even the same color in this instance. But these two cars have major differences that are internal. They're not immediately visible. These two cars were engineered to do similar tasks in completely different ways. The Versa is the most fuel-efficient gasoline-powered vehicle that Nissan makes for the United States domestic market, and its fuel economy numbers are excellent for what it is, but this vehicle was designed to be as efficient as possible for gasoline drivers, and it was designed to appeal to the broadest possible audience, as Nissan wants to have the maximum amount of units get shipped out and sold to as many markets and demographics as possible. On the other hand, the Nissan Leaf was engineered to function completely differently. The Leaf is a niche market item that is now beginning to go mainstream, but it was designed for a very specific subset of people whose purchasing values are perfectly in line with AmpShare's target market's values: environmental sustainability, short distance travel and maneuverability, and the early adoption of future-oriented technology. So both cars have very similar purposes, but complete their tasks in completely different ways and just have different strengths. Now, when looking at the costs of electricity versus gas, it's kind of difficult to draw an exact comparison. So there's about 35 kilowatt hours per gallon of gasoline. That is a theoretical number that does not include several other factors. So while I could say that, a gallon equivalent of electrical energy in New York City costs about $7.50. In San Diego, it costs roughly $5.28. These figures are theoretical, they're misleading, and we're going to use the measures that the United States Department of Energy and the Environmental Protection Agency use. And that's going to be the best way to gain a tangible understanding of what cost savings look like in the real world. So again, we have the Versa and the Leaf. And looking at these numbers here, it's extremely apparent that there are differences going on in how energy is consumed. So when we look at the strength of the Versa, it's hitting 40 miles per gallon on the highway, which is fantastic. I mean, that's really, really great. And it's hitting 32 miles per gallon in the city, which is its weakest area. And it's still really excellent for a gasoline powered vehicle. When we look at the Leaf, we're getting 99 miles per gallon on the highway. It's a 99 miles per gallon electric equivalent. And that's at its weakest point. And at its strongest point in the city, it's getting 123 miles per gallon equivalent, which is nearly 400% more efficient than the Versa. So there's some figures here about energy usage and exactly how much fuel it takes to go 100 miles. It's not the best measure of efficiency because it really needs some context for us to understand it. If we look at cost per mile, I picked a city that is in the top 5 most expensive for United States gasoline and electricity, which is San Diego. So we're at about 11 cents per mile for the Versa and about 5 cents per mile with the Leaf. And there can be some variability depending on what state you live in and depending on if it's summer or winter, depending on if you're charging your electric vehicle in your garage at night when there's low demand hours and the electricity is less expensive versus during the day. But that gives us a cool example of nearly 400% savings in city environments. So electric vehicles were made for cities, cities were made for electric vehicles. It is a perfect match. Now, AmpShare's pricing model is one of its biggest differentiators from its competitors. So Uber and Lyft operate exclusively on a pay-per-ride model. It's dynamic, it's calculated on demand and drivers available and vehicle type. And AmpShare will operate using a subscription model where riders will purchase travel points ahead of time at a static price, and then will pay for their rides and points at a dynamic point price until they run out, in which case they will use the familiar pay-per-ride method. So our initial goal is to capture the heavy users that use rideshare services pretty regularly. And the intended long-term result of using subscription model is to A, generate capital needed to pay drivers ahead of time, B, predict monthly demand with greater accuracy. We'll talk a little bit about that later. And in that, we're hoping to give drivers projections of how much work they could be expected to have within a month. And C, to sell power users or frequent flyers, whatever you want to call them, on the idea of saving money by purchasing travel in bulk. Okay, we want to be the Costco, Sam's Club wholesale of transportation and flexible ride-sharing transportation. Now, riders can opt to not use the monthly subscription plan. I mean, they can use what's most comfortable for them if they prefer the pay-per-ride model. But we will price our services with the intention of incentivizing monthly subscription, even if it's a low dollar amount. What we want is to have constant connection to those riders. We want to have regular transactions with them, and we want to give them advantages where they're seeing, okay, I'm probably going to use these services. I may or may not, but I'm going to purchase them ahead of time because I know I'm saving some money, and hopefully that will get them to use our services more regularly. Now, our final major advantage I'd like to talk about today is the usage of rider and driver travel data to build a dynamic demand prediction model that is more accurate and more personalized than anything we currently see in the rideshare space. Now, how will our algorithm be more predictable and reliable than our competitors' models who have 10 plus years of experience and billions of dollars on us? Well, we're going to accomplish this daunting task by catering our services to riders who are more predictable, A, and reliable, B, in their travel patterns than the general public. So we're mostly looking at city-dwelling professionals between the ages of 25 and 65. They tend to have the most consistent routines. Another thing is that we have the advantage of allowing Uber and Lyft to introduce consumers to ride-sharing services, and they had to spend a lot of money and time and energy working out the kinks of on-demand ride requests and communication between riders and drivers, and ranking systems and disciplinary systems, et cetera. And so similar to how Disney Plus and HBO Max kind of allowed Netflix to educate consumers about video streaming and sell consumers on paying subscription fees for access to media through the internet, as opposed to buying physical media that you put into your DVD player. AmpShare is going to enter an industry with over a decade of mistakes and successes to learn from, a consumer base that is comfortable with the service itself, a network of gig economy drivers who are looking for opportunities to earn more money, and technological innovations in the automotive and machine learning industry that will provide us tremendous cost savings and time savings. And going forward in the future, we would like to look into car charging infrastructure. We'd like to look into either developing an in-house delivery service or partnering with some type of delivery service. Autonomous driving is inevitable, and we would like to look into obviously giving autonomous ride sharing opportunities, and then some strategic partnerships with nonprofits who have and share similar values and missions to ourselves and our customers. So that is all the time that I have today. I'm going to leave my email address in the description of this video, and I would love to answer any questions anyone might have. I would love to get any feedback or suggestions that anyone might have. I appreciate your time and attention, and thank you very much.